leverage the hydro collection to get the water bill paid. So they would say, you know, this person doesn't have their hydro paid and they didn't pay their water bill, so they would threaten that they're going to have their hydro cut off, and they would come in and pay both sides of the bill. So there the problem was solved. Except that, as Lee said, some of these people are very inventive and some of them are very sharp, and they said, you can't do that with water because you don't own the water utility. So you can't shut my water off, but you can shut my hydro off, and I'm only going to pay the hydro bill.
Well,
and so the numbers over the years went up, and in the last 2 or 3 years, you know, it's pushing $100,000 a year.
Well, I guess 100 grand, all utilities are probably chasing money. All businesses have, if you're in business, you're chasing money. But I guess when I look at our outstanding taxes, $100,000 isn't a lot of money when we got, what, 9 or 10 million in outstanding taxes. So I don't know. I just don't want to put any more burden on the landlord, I guess. So I can't support that. Thank you.
Mayor, sorry, you want to respond?
Yeah, I wanted to just respond to something that Councillor Black said. You know, 2 comments back. We're not saying in this process that as soon as the payment's not made, we're going to add it to the property owner's taxes. We're sending a final notice to the we're sending out a notice to the tenant saying, you know, this is your 3rd strike. We're sending a notice at the same time to the owner saying, this person hasn't paid the water bill. Now, we can do that in 2 steps. We can send out a 3rd notice to the tenant and the 1st notice to the property owner. Then, as Councillor Height suggesting, we push the process out a little further. Then send a 4th notice to the tenant, and the 2nd notice to the property owner that says, it's over now, we're going to add this to taxes if you don't get it paid. That doesn't mean that the owner is going to have that automatically added to their taxes. The owner is going to walk down the hall, knock on the door, and tell the tenant to get with the program and pay the bill. Now, I know good luck, but we don't have the ability to do that. The owner of the building does.
Correct.
So our option is we hire somebody to go out and collect them, or we do it a different way and have it added to the owner's taxes.
Thank you for that clarification. I think, Mayor Luke, you are my next speaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not the landlord's problem, so don't make it his or her problem. If I go to rent from a landlord and the landlord says the rent is $600 a month, I'm probably 20 years behind here, and you have to look after your own utilities, then I have to go in and set up an account. And the problem that I'm unable to pay my bill or won't pay my bill is not my landlord's problem, period. So I in no way support starting to eventually put this on landlords' taxes. We have a problem here, folks. It's called people that don't want to pay, people that want us to buck the system, don't want to pay their share. So we need an employee that starts addressing this arrears problem. It's as simple as that. We're in the water distribution business, and people that don't pay their water bills, they need to be confronted, and something needs to be worked out, just like when you get behind in your taxes. So when I rent an apartment from somebody or a unit from somebody, if I don't pay my cable TV bill, the cable company doesn't put that cost onto the landlord's taxes or takes the landlord to court. They cut my service off. Bell telephone. They don't bill it to the landlord. I'm the one that picked the phone up and said, I want cable TV, or I want telephone, or I want natural gas. We have to find a way to go after these people that don't pay their water bill, because it's not free. And I think we need to, we're in that business. I don't think we need to make the landlord accountable. We can shut the water off after so many days. Notice, isn't paid, shut her off. And yes, there's the odd building where 1 meter goes in and the water is distributed to 4 different units. Boy, if one person isn't paying and that water shut off, I got a funny feeling the other 3 tenants and the landlord may just take notice of that. Don't know. But that meter is in somebody's name, and that person is responsible to see that the water is paid. So I think we've had a good discussion here, but I think we need someone that $100,000 is not something we need to be writing off every year, and we need to go after. So, Mr. Chair, I don't accept the recommendation that's accepted here, and I don't know what the perfect answer is. But we have to do something. We're in the business. Right now, anybody out there that's got a landlord and has seen this public report, I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure what the incentive is to pay my water bill anymore. Because guess what? You chase me all you want, but this county is making the decision. I'm not saying we are. This council is going to make the decision, or has made the decision, that my landlord's going to have to come up with the dough. No, I say that person doesn't deserve to be able to turn the tap on and use water. Shut the water off. Simple to me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Councillor Height, then Brunton, then Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to move the recommendation in the report, and I'd like to speak to that.
Okay.
Okay, we've had a lot of talk about multi-units, okay? And we should just stop right there, because probably if you have 4 apartments, you're not the landlord running around to each of you. You owe me $39 for rent. You have 2 kids. You owe me $79 for rent. Doug, you know what? I saw you showering like 5 times, so you even owe me $99. They probably don't do that. They include that in the rent. Those landlords, we don't have the problem with. If it's included in the rent, great. If it's not, and the tenant doesn't pay, why would the landlord who is responsible have to pay? Why would we ask our 15,000 water and wastewater customers to pick up the tab on tenants that refuse to pay? I know personally, I'm a landlord. I'm out of that business right now because I'm going to call my tenants, tell them to get on the bill because you don't have to pay. There's no recourse to me. Why would I be responsible when they could just say, oh, okay, I'm not going to pay the bill? Right? We're punishing our water and wastewater customers to the tune of $65,000 to $140,000 each year because tenants are not paying their bills. Okay, landlords need to realize that they are responsible for water and wastewater. Put it in your rent. I doubt very much you have a single apartment building in Simcoe that's over 8 units where the tenants pay individual rent unless they have individual meters. Because there's no way to do it. It's based on usage. You would have to have a flat rate. And like the landlord isn't going to sit there and divvy it all up and say it's $29, $35. It's included in the rent. And let's face it, landlords aren't in the business to lose money here. Okay? They're in the business to make money via rent. Okay? Many places you'll find utilities, hydro is included. Unless you have different services, how do they handle that? If the neighbor below doesn't pay his hydro, do they cut off the hydro to both buildings? Probably doesn't happen. Probably gets the landlord involved there and he says, I'm going to include it or I'm going to be the guy collecting it from you. So I support this because honestly, we're just passing these unpaid debts off to our water and wastewater customers and they're paying one of the highest rates in Norfolk County.
Okay, are you finished, Councillor, for now? Is that it? Okay, my next speaker is Councillor Brunton for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask Mr. Ford another question.
Okay.
John, do we, right now, on all our, delinquent accounts, if you want to call them that, do we have a collection agency going after? Or what are we doing now?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, for our general accounts receivable, that's what you're talking about, not taxes or water.
No, I'm talking about water.
No, we don't have any, we have no process now that follows up on delinquent accounts.
Well, okay, but you mentioned taxes and accounts receivable.
Accounts receivable, general trade receivables.
Okay, so we have a collection agency working on, you have several of them, do you not?
No, we do, through you, Mr. Chairman, we do two things for general trade receivables. If somebody comes along and has a service that's provided to them, they don't pay for it, we add it to their taxes.
Okay.
So in those instances, after a certain period of time, and I can't tell you the exact period of time because I don't recall what the policy says, but after a certain period of time, if it's not paid, we just add it to their taxes. If we can't add it to the taxes for, you know, whatever reason, we do have a collection agency that goes out and is saddled with the responsibility of collecting those accounts. We don't use it a lot because most often the services that we're billing through our general trade receivables are things that are done to a property, and we can recover that by adding it to taxes.
Well, why can't we, to me, it's a pretty simple thing, get a collection agency going after these delinquent water bills. To me, that's the first step I take. I don't know what they charge, but, and after a period of time, I think you'll start to see some change, I would hope.
I think it's typical they charge a percentage of whatever they.
Well, if they're, you know, you're going to have, it's not a perfect world, and to me, you're going to start and zero in on the ones that are constant. You're going to collect some money, or they'll be moving out of the community because they're not going to get any water.
Councillor, I'm going to ask Ms. Robinson. She was anxious to get in on this one as well. So, Lee, I'll let you interject a comment.
Certainly, I'm going to disagree slightly with Mr. Ford because I don't think he was aware of a process that was taking place behind the scenes with respect to the delinquent accounts. Our billing contractor was actually using a collection agency to collect our backwater and our back wastewater accounts. So it wasn't something that went through finance, so finance wouldn't have been aware of it. It was part of the contract that we had in place with them. And we received a certain percentage of the back bill, and when they sent everything to collections, and whatever they received back from collections, we got a certain percentage of that. So the write-offs that we've been seeing were not the full amount of the accounts that were what we were able to get, the amount left over after we did go through collections and all of that sort of stuff. So we didn't just say, oh, they didn't pay and we wrote it off. We actually went through the collections, or the billing contractor was going through the collections process for us. We did get some money. So the amount that's there is not the full amount that wasn't paid. It was the balance between what wasn't paid and how much the collection agency was able to collect.
So the full picture is worse than what the report is saying in terms of the amount of the arrears, because our new contractor, Earth, doesn't provide that same collection service for us, do they?
They do not.
They do not, yeah. I remember that. So, are you finished, Councillor?
Ask, could we have added that to their contract to do collections, or do we just have to go and hire our own collection agency?
My recollection is that was almost like a provisional optional item, and for cost reasons, we chose not to include it in the tender, as I recall.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to feign stupidity on this one because I don't recall that that's in there, but it might very well be. I can tell you that for one of the other suppliers, I'm not going to mention who they are, their charge per account for sending out a reminder notice was about $8, just to send out a reminder notice. Wow. I would imagine that Earth would do the collections, but we'd have to pay for it.
Well, if it is in there, you're not sure if it is in there. We're kind of going around circles here, are we not? Like, we don't want to take some other drastic measure when we're already paying for a service.
Mr. Chairman, no, we're not paying that. We're not paying for that collection service with Earth at all. It's not in the contract. No. I don't know, or the chairman is saying that he recollects or recalls that it may have been a provisional item. I can't say that it is or it isn't. I don't recall that. But we are certainly not paying for any collection process now.
So we can, if we wish as an option, hire a collection agency.
We could hire a collection agency, and what the whole purpose of this report is to say, we've got a $100,000 problem.
Right.
Here's a way we can solve it. Here's another way we can solve it. When we talked about, back when we were talking about bringing water billing in-house, we talked about having a collection person on staff. Council was not the least bit interested in doing that. That's fine, that's certainly council's prerogative. And we can continue with the status quo, but you know, I need council to understand, or we need council to understand that if you do that, you're putting $100,000 plus charge onto the delinquent, or the people who pay their bills.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm not saying...
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for a point of order, please?
All right.
Do we have a motion on the table
Yes,
or
we
not?
do.
You know, are we speaking to that motion or not? Are we just kind of going around in circles here?
I was about, Mayor Luke, I was about to interject and make the same comment.
Oh, okay,
so-
thank you very much. I'm glad we're on the same wavelength, and I don't mind somebody talking for half an hour if they're speaking to the motion, but thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Brunton, if you don't mind, I think we better move on. Lee, did you wish to make another specific comment on this particular item?
I was just going to comment that it was not currently included in Earth's contract.
Correct.
It was an optional item, but we felt that the costs were too high for the benefit that we would receive.
That's my recollection as well. Thank you for backing me up. Councillor Sonnenberg is my next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be supporting the motion. I will not put this on the backs of the land board. The only way to make this work is that if the water bill is included in the rent, then you have some kind of a threat, some kind of a hammer. If you don't pay the whole thing, well, then you're evicted. Hey, it can be done. Or separate meters and separate valves for each unit. If you don't pay your bill, you turn the water off. What could be simpler? But certainly don't make it the responsibility of the landlord. And as for a collection agency, what power or what hammer do they have? Hey, you owe me $100. Well, I'm not going to pay you. And what are you going to do about it? Well, I don't know. I can't turn your water off, so I guess you're going to continue to owe me $100. Right? What good is a collection agency if you can't take the service away? That's something we can't do. So I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Speaking further to this, Councillor Black to the motion. You are on my list.
Is it on? Yep. Further, no, this will be my first time to the motion. Yeah, it's unfair. I used these words before. Unjust. It's just not right to put this on the backs of the landlord, as many of my fellow colleagues have already indicated. The landlords receive no benefit from this. You know, it's the person that used it that received the benefit. So why would they pay for that? And then Councillor Height's argument about, well, then everybody else pays. Well, isn't that how it works? I mean, every business has crime, has theft. Well, who pays for that? Everybody else pays for that. So people are delinquent with their hydro. Who pays for that? All the other hydro people. When taxes are not paid, who pays for that? All the other taxpayers. So I'm sorry to say, but Councillor Height's analogy just doesn't hold water.
Thank you. Mayor Luke, you were my last speaker.
Yeah, speaking to the motion, I won't support this recommendation. I could probably do it if we had some kind of teeth to say the only people that can sign up for water accounts are the owners of the property. If you own the house or you own the apartment, you're the only one that can come in. And then if you can't collect the rent, that's your problem. We're going to put it onto your tax bill. But I'll tell you, to expect somebody to pay through their taxes because a tenant has the right and goes down and signs up to get water from Norfolk County, turns around and will not pay their bill, to put that cost on the landlord. He didn't sign anything or she didn't sign anything, Mr. Chair. It's just wrong. It's terrible. And, you know, if we're the provider of a service, then I think we've got to figure out how to solve our problem and deal with the people that don't want to pay for water, who think they got a free ride. That's the solution we got to come up with. And putting it somebody else's tax bill, didn't even use the water, didn't even sign up for the water, is just morally, well, it's terrible. Thank you.
You're welcome. I see no further speakers. We do have a motion. Councillor Height has moved the recommendation in the report. That is that we receive the report as information and that council approve adding tenant arrears for water and wastewater charges to the tax roll of the owner of the property to which the water wastewater service was supplied. I will call the question. Those in favor of the motion? Those opposed to the motion? That motion fails. Any further action? Councillor Black.
We do have a report, and we haven't solved the problem yet,
No.
but at the very least, can we just, for the time being, receive the report as information? And I think it's not over. I think we're going to have to pursue it, but I just don't know exactly what. So just for the time being, I'd suggest we receive it as information.
And that is a further motion. All right, I'll entertain that as a motion. Speaking to this motion, or? All right. Then let's receive this report as information as moved by Councillor Black, first of all. Those in favor, please? That is everyone. Thank you for that, Councillor Black. Councillor Breton, further on this item?
Well, I think, for what it's worth, I say hand it over to a collection agency. It's not going to cost us a nickel. They work on a percentage, I believe, so let's let them see what they can do with it. Won't cost us any money, and maybe we might make some. I'll make that a motion.
Okay, that is a motion, and that
Sure.
would be that...
we try to hire a
Yeah.
collection agency to see what they can do.
Just so I get my wording correctly, Councillor, Mr. Ford, is this report and this issue is primary or exclusively for tenants, I gather, in buildings? In other words, other than building owners themselves?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, for building owners, we are adding unpaid water bills to their tax account.
Already.
Because it's all part of that whole
Correct.
package. It's only for tenants or occupants. They're variously referred to as the same thing.
Okay.
And I certainly don't have any difficulty with what Councillor Brunton is saying. Respectfully, I would request that council refer it to staff to come back with a report in terms of what's recommended. That will certainly be one of the recommendations, but I don't know what it's going to cost, and it's not going to solve 100% of the problem, because the collection agent is not going to be able to collect 100% of the outstanding water accounts.
So I wonder, Councillor, then if your motion, and again, you'll yell at me if I try to put words in your mouth, but your motion could be that staff be directed to investigate and report on having a collection agency deal with delinquent tenant water and wastewater bills. Is that okay? Absolutely. We appreciate your direction on it. Madam Deputy, have you got what we need? You've heard me essentially give you the wording that is in the motion. I will ask if there's any final speakers to this motion. If not, those in favor. And that is unanimous. Thank you for that. And I'm sure with that one, Mr. Ford, staff will be back as soon as they can because time is money. Under the bridge. Okay. Enough of those analogies, I think. Okay, let's move on then. I think we do have one item of communications to deal with. This is from Connor Turnicliffe regarding the intersection of Oak Street and Evergreen Hill Road in Simcoe. Someone prepared to move that we receive that? Thank you, Councillor Black.
More than that, just
Okay.
receive it. I think receive it and forward to staff to investigate, because I have responded to this individual, and I do go up there twice a day with my daughter, and I use both those access points that he's referring to, and they are very dangerous. So I think we need to have staff have a look at them. And the problem is it's intermittent. It's like when school goes in and noon hour, and when school's out. It's a real big problem around there with the buses and the cars trying to go in and out. But I think staff needs to go up there and have a look at both the, the intersection at Oak Street and the Evergreen Hill Road. Queen Street, sorry. Queen and Evergreen, Oak and Evergreen. There's no controls at Oak. There is a four-way stop, and there was a proposed stop light at that location, which Mayor Luke, councilor at the time, gave to Councilor Wells down in Port Dover in front of the grocery store. And so it was very nice of him. I supported it. But now there is no light there, and it's time to look at that situation. So I think, you know, a motion to receive and forward to staff for a report.
Okay, thank you. And that, you are prepared to move that motion? Thank you. Speaking to that motion then, Mayor Luke and then Councillor Height.
Mr. Chair, I certainly will support this motion. And I ask that this be put on the agenda tonight because I too agree that it needs to be looked at. What the solution is, don't know. I just want to say, Mr. Chair, supporting this motion to look at the intersection, this council and previous council have done a number of things that we have been involved in to assist when that school came in. The sidewalk, south side, the reduction of speed limit to 40 recently, and certainly the four-way stop. The development in the south end has increased a lot of the traffic at the peak time of going to work, which coincides with in the morning. And I too travel that every day to my place of work and into town, and it needs to be looked at, and I'll wait for the report. Thank you.
You're welcome. Further speakers, Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wasn't this a project, a capital project that came back forward, or is this just for the control of the intersection? Just for the control? Okay, thank you.
Madam Deputy Clerk, would you mind reading the wording that you have?
Through the chair, moved by Councillor Black that the communication of Connor Turncliffe be received as information and that the communication be referred to staff to review intersections at Queen and Evergreen and Oak and Evergreen and report back to committee.
Once again, as I think is going to be our protocol, at least I'm suggesting it is as council, can we put a time frame on that, Councillor? What sort of time frame, Ms. Robinson, would be reasonable for us to ask to have that come back?
I think it would be reasonable that we could have a report here for the end of April.
Thank you very much. Would you add that wording to the motion, please? Thank you. You've heard the motion then, Councillor. Those in favor? No one is opposed. Sorry, Councillor. We all should remember to try and do that. I think it will be a help to staff if we set those time periods and then also for us. So, okay. All right. Does that bring us then, I think, to the end of our sessions? In open session, there are no motions. Any notices of motion to be brought forward? Any other business? We are approaching the 8:30 hour. We've got a couple of matters in camera. No, I realize that. We've got to go in camera. Madam Acting Deputy County Manager, what's our time frame, do we think? Realistically, are we going to be finished before 9 o'clock? Yes, good. Okay, we're going to go in camera, and then we'll hopefully have time to come out and do other business. Is someone prepared to move that we convene in camera? Thank you, Councillor Brunton. At 8:30 p.m. in closed session to discuss two matters pursuant to section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act as the subject pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. I've lost my counsel. Those in favor? Thank you. Carry on, I'll follow you in. No respect, right, John? What's the matter with these guys? someone to move that we come back into open? Mayor Luke, thank you. Mayor Luke, gentleman, has moved that committee adjourns the closed session at 8:55 p.m. and reconvenes in open session. Those in favor? That is carried. Council, just before we adjourn, which I think we're going to do, we don't really have time for other business. I do want to give Marlene Miranda a brief moment because there's a bit of a public concern that we need to be aware of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to advise that a media release was released today, as we've been notified by the Hamilton Public Health, that there has been another stray cat that has been tested positive for rabies. The cat was found in the area of Hamilton, very close to Caledonia in Haldimand. The health units are working collaboratively to further investigate if there's any other individuals that have been exposed to the rabid animal and seeking and providing treatment. So we just like to advise the community in addition to having their pets up to date on rabies vaccinations, we'd also like to encourage the public to take the following preventative measures to further reduce the risk and limit the spread of rabies in the community. So just briefly, stay away from unfamiliar animals or any other animals acting strangely. Stay away from wild animals and do not feed them. Supervise children where they are around animals. Prevent pets from coming into contact with wildlife. Do not let pets roam free. Feed pets indoors. Feeding pets outdoors can attract other unwanted animals, and keep the garbage securely covered. So we encourage all community members to review the memo for the preventative measures, but also be aware of the contact information should they come into contact with any suspect animal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marlene. And the public could certainly get in touch with your office if they have some concerns or need more information.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Kritz Lussi is our contact person, so please feel free to call the health unit if you have any questions or concerns.
Thank you very much. All right, Council, I think in that case, I would accept the motion for adjournment from Councillor Wells. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. No. This might